All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to PrestaShop Project Live Update. My name is Christian Podemski, and I will spend the next half hour or so talking to you about the things that are going around the PrestaShop project, PrestaShop open source project. And yeah, let's get it started. It's May already, so we are almost halfway there for the 2024. Like I said, I'm Christian Podemski. I'm your host for today. I'm tech evangelist for the project. And today's agenda is as follows. First of all, I will present you with event rules. Then I will discuss some project news. Then I will do some live coding session, live demo of some of the changes from the developer documentation. And as always, last but not least, there will be Q&A session. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them using the chat. But first things first, first of all, event rules. Use chat to ask questions. As I just told you, there is a little delay between what I see and what you see, so don't hesitate to ask your questions as soon as possible. This event is about the PrestaShop open source project. It is not about the PrestaShop company. The next rule is that this event is public and recorded, so you can watch the replay of it later on YouTube. And last but not least, please abide by the code of conduct of the PrestaShop project. Be nice to each other. Let's not spread any hate. And yeah, let's start with the project news. First of all, two releases, two patch releases. One is about PrestaShop 1.7. It is the release in part of our extended support phase for PrestaShop 1.7.8. It is security release, which fixes 4 security issues reported by community researchers. The same goes for PrestaShop 8. And there were 5 bug fixes and 3 security fixes. The one fix for the 1.7.8 is basically cherry-picked from V8, from the previous release of V8. This is why we have 4 security fixes for 1.7 and 3 security fixes for V8. Both releases are obviously released on GitHub, and you can search for full release notes on our build blog on build.prestashopproject.org. And the next news is quite a big one, because we are getting closer and closer to release of PrestaShop 8.1, and the next news is about translations. PrestaShop 8.1 is ready for translation. So if you happen to help us with the translations, if you want to start helping us with translating the project into your language, make sure to read the full announcement on the build blog. Leah, our content manager for the project, for the open source project, prepared a full article summarizing what happens next with translations for the project. There's also a new tool introduced in the translations world of the project, which reassures that the quality of translations is as best as possible. Plus, there are some other informations that are important for translators. So make sure to check the announcement and hop into the crowd to help us translating the project. And also, I would like to mention that Leah is providing us with an interesting series of articles called Do You Speak PrestaShop? And every month, she basically summarizes what's going on with translations of the project. So if you want to see the best translators, if you want to see what is the progress with translations of the project, make sure to read our announcement, our summarizes of translating the project on our developer blog. The next news is also regarding the blog and what Leah is doing for the project. It's about 2 new interviews with community members. One of them is Luis, who recently published a very interesting book about creating modules for PrestaShop 8, creating modules with the usage of modern architecture in PrestaShop. So make sure to check interview with Luis, as well as interview with one of our most active translators, Amir, who is also a very active community member of the project. So yeah, the series continues. Those are two new interviews with the project community members. And the next news is about the classic theme and PrestaShop 9.0. As you probably can tell, the future is Hummingbird, but I would like to share with you some of the news regarding the classic. First of all, there's a question. Yeah, what is the future of classic theme? And we've decided, the project members decided that there will be a new version of the classic theme for PrestaShop 9.0. There will be some backward incompatible changes, and we do that simply because we want to provide you with the full support of WebP images and AVIF images in your themes. And last but not least, this will be probably, but I'm pretty sure of it, the last version of Classic for PrestaShop. The Classic theme is going to be deprecated in PrestaShop 9 in favor of Hummingbird theme. So if you take a look at the current state of the repository on our GitHub, there are three branches. There's a 2.0 2.x branch, which is dedicated to PrestaShop 8.0. There is also a branch called 2.1.x, which is a version dedicated to PrestaShop 8.1. And there is also, of course, the develop branch, which is dedicated to the next major version of PrestaShop 9, of PrestaShop, which is the version 9 of the software. And the plan is that if the Classic receives any fixes on the bottom branches like 2.0 or 2.1, we're going to go through the fixes and cherry pick them manually so they can go from bottom to top if they are relevant for new versions of the software. So if you want to contribute to the Classic, if your bug fix or the if the bug fix is related to 8.0 and you want to contribute, the better would be to contribute to 2.0, and we will merge your fixes to the upper branches if they are relevant for newer versions of PrestaShop. If you want to improve the Classic for the next major version, make sure to contribute against the develop branch. But to answer the question, what is the future of the Classic theme? Well, the future is Hummingbird, and I'm strongly recommending to make yourself familiar with the new theme, with what's going on with Hummingbird, because the work is progressing. As you can see on your screen on the slide, there's a list of tasks to be ready. Basically, product managers from the project made sure that there is a list of things to be done before the Hummingbird will be treated as a stable theme that can be published for PrestaShop 9. So if you want to contribute, make sure to check the project on GitHub, to ask us if there's anything to help with on the project Slack, and so on and so forth. We will gladly welcome any contribution, because this is an important project by the community, for the community, with the support, of course, of project members and members of the PrestaShop company. And we hope that Hummingbird will be ready for PrestaShop 9. That's the goal. That's the goal for Hummingbird to be the next default theme for PrestaShop 9. And yet another quite a big news for the community and entire ecosystem of PrestaShop. It's about minimum PHP compatibility for PrestaShop 9. So it's about the next major version of PrestaShop. So if we want to discuss PHP compatibility, let's take a closer look at how it looks right now. On the top, you can see the chart, the table of compatibility with PrestaShop from 1.6 to 1.7.8. And as you can tell, the most recent version of 1.7, sorry, is compatible with quite a wide range of PHP versions, because it's compatible with 7.1 to 7.4. The thing is that I will tell you that on the next slide that there's no security support for those versions anymore. So it's important for the project to move forward. As we can tell on the next table, you can see that support for PHP compatibility in PrestaShop 8 is between 7.2 and 8.1, which is quite better. But if we take a look at PHP compatibility chart, sorry, PHP chart with which shows what are the currently supported versions, what are the versions that are no longer supported, what are the versions that are supported with security fixes. We see that PHP 8.0 is basically getting abandoned in like 6 months. The two fully supported versions are only 8.1 and 8.2, and I probably don't really need to tell you how important it is for the e-commerce software to be secure and use the recent versions of PHP. This is why the leadership council decided, after discussing with other project members, after receiving the feedback from the community and so on and so forth, to drop the support for PrestaShop lower than for PHP lower than 8.1. This means that PrestaShop 9 minimum PHP version will be PHP 8.1. So this is quite a big news. This will require some changes in your solutions. If you are a module developer, if you are a theme developer, this will require some changes in your code base. Obviously, PrestaShop 8 is compatible with PHP 8.1 right now. So if you develop with PrestaShop 8.0 or 8.1, you should your solutions should be compatible with this version of PHP anyway. But this will be a change in our ecosystem anyway. Now, when we discuss PHP, let's take a quick look at what the future will bring us with the PHP versions. So I would like to share a little live coding session with you on how we could improve our code base, our PrestaShop code base, and how you could improve your solution code base by basically investing in making your solutions compatible with the newest features of PHP 8.0 and 8.1. We will not discuss 8.1 simply because if you are a module developer, it's probably better for you to make your module compatible with 8.1, not only with 8.2. If you are a if you are a developer from an agency, this probably doesn't matter that much. But if you want to provide more merchants with your solutions, if you sell modules or on some marketplaces, you have to be compatible with the lower version of PHP compatible, which will be 8.1 in PrestaShop 9. So I will share my screen right now, and we will do a little overview of features in PHP. All right, I think you can see my screen. I don't see any comments on chat. All right, now I can see the comments. All righty. Remember, guys and girls, that if you have any questions about what I just said and about what I presented, about what I'm showing you right now, or about the project in general, you can ask them on chat. So there's a PrestaShop 9 in front of me. It's not 8.1. We just we haven't updated the version yet, but it is a developed branch of PrestaShop project. And I'm running PHP 8.1 on my computer, as you can see right now. And I will open Tinkerwell just to show you a few code snippets that I prepared for you, which will tell you how the new version of PHP will help you work with your modules, with your solutions in PrestaShop. So maybe let's start with something easier, or something which, in my opinion, it's quite a subjective opinion, will increase the readability of the code base in PrestaShop and in our solutions. So if you take a look at this code snippet, we can see that I have a PS_round function from tools class in PrestaShop. This is basically a function that rounds the prices and so on. If I run this code, this line, it will basically change my float that I provided the function with to a more readable number. And this is how the method looks like right now. it uses switch expression to determine whether we want to round the price up or down or halfway down, and so on and so forth. It's based obviously on the configuration or on the provided round mode. So what we can do in PHP 8.0, we can change the switch expression with the newly introduced match expression, which, quite subjective, in my opinion, is more readable, and it basically tells you better what's going on in the code base. As you can see right now, this is the switch expression in the old function, and below I have the newly introduced function with match expression. So I will comment out the first result. As you can tell, I don't have anything on the right, and I can run the function with the new match expression, and the result is the same. And yeah, you can tell me in the comment if you think that the match expression is more readable than the switch. In my opinion, it is. It makes the code more condensed and more readable, but it's quite subjective, so any opinions are welcomed. If we should follow this direction and do some improvements in the code base to introduce match expression instead of switch in some places. The match expression isn't ideal. It won't fit in any case, but in my opinion, in this case, it's quite a good example of how can we condensate the code base in PrestaShop in our functions. And the next thing is that we can obviously use something called named arguments. So instead of providing parameters one after another, like a value, precision, round mode, and so on and so forth, we can run the function like this, and it will basically produce the same output as we've expected. The difference is that we can provide parameters to the function in whatever order we want. So it's very handy, especially in PrestaShop, which code base is quite old, and we have a lot of functions that are with 10 plus arguments in the function, which isn't ideal, and it's a bad practice, let's be honest. But with introduce of PHP 8.1, the work with those functions will be much more easier. So in this example, you can see that I provided the function with the round mode, precision, and value in an order which is completely different than the function arguments order. So this is very handy. And I would like to continue with our named arguments. I prepared another little snippet, which is called named arguments. Here I have full documentation of the named argumentation, sorry, not the documentation, but a link to the PHP 8.0 landing page, which basically summarizes all the changes, and named arguments is basically a number one feature promoted on this page. And I can understand why, especially by some, if someone is working with PrestaShop, I'm sure we will appreciate this feature. So back to Tinkerwell. Very often we need to get some products from the product class or from the category class, and so on and so forth. This is an example with named arguments, but let's start with the old school approach. So let's say that I want to take two new products from PrestaShop. And PrestaShop provides us with the method that gets the new products. And basically all we need to do is to provide ID language of the products. So let's try this out. We will dump the results. And as we can see, it returns me 10 products. This is an array of coming from this method. It returns me with the 10 products from 10 new products from PrestaShop. And if I want to say that I want to get only, for instance, 2 products, I need to provide the function with 2 more parameters. The first will be page number, which will be 0. The second will be number of products. Let's say 2. I run the code, and as you can see, as you can tell, the array now contains 2 items, but well, it's not really ideal. Let's take a look at the method. We have get new products 102, 102. So yeah, we could do that. This will be ID lang, this will be page number, and so on and so forth. But PHP 8.0 allows us to do it differently and much more easier than it was previously possible. Basically, if I want to get 2 new products from this method, I can provide this method with 2 named arguments, NB products and ID lang. The result will be the same as the array on the second screen, sorry, on the right screen, right side of the Tinkerwell. So let's dump the products array, refreshed, and the array is the same. I can change the number of products to 3, 1. Even if I want to tinker with some other arguments, like, for example, I will, well, maybe this is not the best method to tinker with more arguments, but I could do something like this. This will basically returns me the number of all new products in the system. ID lang is required, but I don't need to provide anything else. To get the number of new products in the system, I need to provide a method with only 2 arguments, ID lang and count. And previously it was impossible. We should have provided the method with all the arguments, and for instance, the 7th argument was this count boolean, which should be changed to true. So named arguments are very handy, especially in PrestaShop code base. There are a lot of methods which requires a lot of arguments. I can think of category get products and search find and many more methods that requires to provide 5+ arguments. So this will be very handy. But there are a few downsides. For instance, if we decide to change the name of the argument, it won't work anymore. So there is a one but big downside to in usage of this method, this approach. If we decide, for instance, to change the ID lang to lang ID, it won't work anymore because simply the named argument will be irrelevant. I don't know if there is any idea of providing the function with aliases so we can map ID dash lang to lang ID. I have no idea. If you know about some ideas like this, or maybe it is possible right now, let me know in the chat. And let me know what do you think about the named arguments in PHP. I do believe it will be a great addition to the software for you to have a possibility to use named arguments in PHP 8.0 in your solutions. It will be much easier to work with PrestaShop codebase thanks to that. Okay, and one more example for today when it comes to PHP. I prepared one example of the class, and it's about constructor property promotion. This is how you could create a class before in PHP. It's basically a class with the constructor which takes 3 parameters: ID, shop ID, and language ID. All of them requires to be integer. All of them are required. So if I run this class, I have ID 1, shop ID 2, and lang ID 3. And this is also quite subjective, similar to what we saw in with match expression. There is one new feature in PHP 8.0, which is called constructor property promotion. We can change entire code to be more condensed simply by doing this. As you can see, there are no properties just after the class name. Everything is happening in the constructor, and the result is basically the same as before. So it's also quite subjective. If it's better or not, hard to say. The code is more condensed. To me, it requires less work to to create a new class, to introduce new class and work with constructor. Of course, IDE is very helpful. If you create a new constructor, you can basically export all these properties to be there after you create them in the constructor. But the language should be helpful as well, not only IDE. So again, let me know if you think that it's more readable and if more condensed code base is better. All right. So those were examples from PHP 8.0. There are obviously more features like attributes. There's no longer need to use annotations in Doctrine and some other solutions. We can use built-in attributes. I've shown you the constructor property promotion. There are also union types, which will drastically help with the stability of the software. Also in PrestaShop, we do have some situations in some classes where we allow some certain variables to be either null or something. So it will be interesting to see this in the code base. There's also a match expression, very handy null safe operator, and very and much more features which are very handy for developers. Obviously, there are also quite big improvements when it comes to the performance. But when it comes to the performance, I would like to show you first the PHP 8.1, which will be 22% quicker than faster than PHP 7.4, which is drastically improved by over 20%. It's a drastic improvement, which basically is yet another argument that the upgrade to PHP 8.1 is a good decision and we should do it. As you can tell, there is a 23% speed up when it comes to Symfony. There is a 3.5% for the WordPress, but I do believe it's because of the quite ancient code base, and maybe with the usage of the modern code, it will be better. I'm pretty sure we will do some benchmarks for the PrestaShop as well. And when we talk PrestaShop 8.1, there are also some interesting features like built-in enums. There's no longer a need to use the third-party libraries to use enums, which are a better way to basically determine some of the static values in your code base, type safe values. Like if you have a blog post, it can be in the draft state or published or archived and so on and so forth. I haven't checked yet, but there are a few places in PrestaShop codebase which could be a good place for using enums. There's also more strict features, not more strict features, but features which makes your code base more strict when it comes to manipulating your classes and properties. By introducing read-only properties, you can reassure that there will be no one tinkering with properties in the class. And there's also much more features, very interesting features for us to use. And yet again, PrestaShop 9 will come with 8.1 as the minimum compatible version. So if you want to check what's new in PHP world, you can simply check PHP 8.0, 8.1, plus, of course, 8.2, which will be also compatible version with PHP 9. And when it comes to PHP 8.2, there will be a few additions like read-only classes or some other features like constant int trace, which is quite interesting because I really thought that tracks will be basically abandoned in PHP world, but well, they are useful in some cases, and I guess it's better to improve something than abandon it, because I don't believe we will ever get rid of traits, so it's better to improve them instead of deleting them because it's simply impossible. And there will be also a change regarding the dynamic properties, which we use in PrestaShop. So there will be some thinking in how to handle this in PrestaShop codebase. If I'm not mistaken, we use these dynamic properties in some overrides features, but this is something to check. All right, so yeah, like I said, PrestaShop 9 will be compatible with PHP 8.1 and 8.2. And yeah, this is a major upgrade for our ecosystem, but I'm pretty sure that every developer will appreciate the change. And even though it's quite a drastic decision from the business perspective and even for the community, solution authors, it is required for the project to move forward because PHP doesn't slow down. Plus, it will ease the maintenance of the project drastically by letting us to upgrade the libraries of the project, libraries that project uses, and it will make the software more secure because we will abandon the versions that are no longer supported when it comes to the security patches. So it's a big step, but it's necessary for the project to catch up with the PHP versions. It will ease the migration to Symfony 6 in the future, so it should be all positive in the end eventually. Alrighty, that's it when it comes to PHP version. I would like to also mention a few changes in the developer documentation that we did in April. So let's take a look at the developer documentation. First of all, if you visit the developer documentation right now, there will be a new homepage. So Thomas did a great job to summarize all the sections of the communication of the documentation in this grid view. There is also a section with most viewed pages like system requirements, list of hooks, and so on and so forth. So it's part of the never-ending improvements in the developer documentation. And what's even more interesting is that we finally can see the documentation for the PrestaShop collection component. We do have a full guide on how to migrate your solutions from the old product page to the new product page. And yet another reminder that there will be a new product page in PrestaShop 8.1. So if you have any solutions that touches on product page that adds any fields, or if you have any modules working with the data from the product page, you should probably check the new product page and test your solutions. There is a full guide available in the documentation, as you can see on the screen. There is a list of removed hooks, and there's a tutorial how to add the custom field. There's a mapping on what was the old hook in the old product page and what's the alternative in the new product page, and so on and so forth. There's also a full example module in the example modules repository showing how to work with the new products page, which is more extensible, which is better in every way. And let me tell you that I cannot wait for PrestaShop 8.1 to be released just to play with the new product page on client stores, because it really is a great addition to the ecosystem and to the software. Speaking of 8.1, a quick update on the state of the PrestaShop 8.1, because I'm sure many of you is wondering where is 8.1. It should have been released quite a long time ago. While there were some, there is a bumpy road ahead of us. There was a bumpy road for us with with a lot of security patches for PrestaShop, with some other issues like GDPR module. There were some problems with the translations, catalog export, and so on and so forth. The good news is the RC1, the release candidate, the first version of release candidate, is coming very soon. It should be no longer than 2 weeks before you see the release candidate version. It will be released to both the community of the project, plus QA team for the project to test. So this should speed up any tests, and yeah, it should take no longer than 2 weeks to see 8.1, and it will be really important for everyone to take your hands on 8.1 to test your solutions, because it's the last call before the final release. And it's better to fix any critical issues before the final release, not afterwards. So we will obviously communicate in every available channel about release candidate availability. So stay tuned. Yeah, I wanted to show you also that I should have showed you that before, but there's a list of issues for the Hummingbird theme. Basically, everything what is necessary for the Hummingbird to be released as a stable theme to PrestaShop 9 is now being documented in the GitHub issues, so you can check it and contribute if you want. There's also one thing that I would like to mention is very important discussion going on in the discussions of the PrestaShop project. It's about forbidding accessing PHP files directly, those files that are placed in the modules directory. And this is strictly for security purposes. It's better to use module front controller if you want to access to your module files than using the PHP file directly, because it's basically a gate, an open gate in many modules for hacks, and many modules are unfortunately were made in a way where you could upload the file or inject the code through accessing the PHP files directly. With usage of module front controller, it would be much harder to do. So there's an ongoing discussion if that's a good idea, how we could implement it, how we could communicate to developers, how we could teach them how to migrate their solutions from accessing the file directly to the module front controller. I know personally that there are some troubles with the context class and accessing the module front controller files, especially since you run some of the files through CLI and so on and so forth. So it is very interesting and very important discussion. So if you happen to use some files directly, like I don't know, cron PHP or Ajax PHP or whatever PHP directly in your modules, make sure to read this discussion, because it will be quite a big change in the ecosystem, and I'm sure there will be some module developers very mad at us by making this change. But in my opinion, it will greatly improve the security of ecosystem, which should be our top one priority right now. So that's basically it, what I wanted to show you today. The last thing that we have planned for today is obviously the Q&A session. And we do have one question from the community. And a quick reminder that if you want to ask any questions before these live updates, you can do it by clicking the form that I share anytime I present you with some announcement regarding the live updates. And there's one question from Adamus, two questions actually. Is there any ETA for PrestaShop v9, estimated time of arrival of PrestaShop 9? Will it be later due to delay with 8.1? First of all, it's too soon to tell what is the ETA for v9. It's too soon to tell. We do have some plans for feature freeze and so on and so forth, but best would be to discuss it later when the roadmap will be fully finished and communicated to the community. It should happen next month, or maybe in August. We will definitely let the community know what are the plans regarding the PrestaShop 9. But yeah, the plan was to release PrestaShop 9 at the end of the year. I don't think that's possible given that we are late with 8.1. And the second question is about the Hummingbird. When you have a plan to launch the Hummingbird theme? Well, the plan is to have it in v9, but it's only the plan. We really need all hands on deck to release the Hummingbird. There's still a lot of work to do. There's a lot to think about, the compatibility with third-party solutions, how to migrate solutions from Classic to the Hummingbird. There's a documentation to be done. There are some styling issues. There's a lot of things to consideration, like should we make some core changes to improve the Hummingbird quality. Like for example, there are some issues with card controller. Should we make those changes to should we make those changes to V9, or should we make V9 compatible with Classic as best as possible and don't introduce more breaking changes to Classic? There are a lot of questions without answers. So it's an ongoing project, and the good news is that we have a great support from many community members, and there's also a support from some of the contributors from PrestaShop company, which is because there are people in the company that are also interested in seeing Hummingbird in V9. So that's a great news. So yeah, the plan is to have it in V9, either as a default theme or as a theme next to the Classic. In my personal opinion, it should be a default theme. We should move forward and let developers prepare better themes for the ecosystem. But it's a tough choice. It's a tough choice. We all remember what happened in 1.6 to 1.7. There was really an angry community at us by releasing a new theme, which was not ideal, which was based on the beta version or alpha version of Bootstrap. Hummingbird is much better and much more much better when it comes to the quality and the structure of the theme and so on and so forth. So it shouldn't be that hard as the 1.6 to 1.7, but still it's a tough choice. And yeah, thank you for asking, Adamos. All right, I think that's it for today. Does anybody has any more questions for me about the project, about what I shown you today? Yeah, good to see you, Daniel. It would be a big breaking chance. You mean the security part of accessing the PHP files directly? I'm pretty sure you meant that. And I agree, this would be it would be a big breach break. This is why we need all the module developers possible to comment on this discussion, because it will impact many solutions. But on the other hand, it's like with this change with SQL queries, with multi-statement SQL queries in PrestaShop. We had to disable them simply because it was an open gate to SQL injection. So yeah, in my opinion, it's better to make a difficult decision and to improve the security by adding more work for module developers, but security should come first. Yeah, there is a chat, Vincent. There is a chat. We are on YouTube. There is a chat for the live update. So if you have any questions, any comments, you can add them there. All right, I think, okay, we do have a question. Could you please explain what is Hummingbird, please? Yeah, I can explain that to you. Well, I even can show you the screen, and I will visit the Hummingbird repository. Basically, Hummingbird is an ongoing project on the new theme for PrestaShop. This is how it looked quite a long time ago. I don't think it looked like it looks like this these days, but Daniel, you can tell if it's an actual state of the theme. I don't think so. I think it looks a bit better these days. But yeah, it's a replacement for Classic. And basically, it's a project that a community started without any help from the company. So it's a community project with the help from Daniel Havacek, from Valentin, who is still a maintainer of the project. So yeah, it's a great starting point for the theme developers. As you probably know, Classic is very outdated theme based on Bootstrap alpha version, Bootstrap 4 alpha version. And Hummingbird is a new start of front office in PrestaShop based on Bootstrap 5 with better tooling and better structure of the project. You can basically take out one directory to have a clear template, clear theme to work with, to style your own new theme for PrestaShop. It's much better in every way possible for front-end developer. And I'm sure you can see some demos that we did during previous live updates. It was Daniel who presented that. It was Valentin who presented the demos of Hummingbird. So make sure to check some of the previous videos of live updates to see how it looks, how it works, and so on. And feel free to test Hummingbird because it is compatible with 8.0. So yeah, make sure to test it. All right. One more thing. I forgot about one thing. I see it now. There's one more addition to the developer documentation, which basically describes how to upgrade PrestaShop using CLI and how to upgrade module. So this was highly anticipated by the community, and the guide is right there with the full instruction how to do that. But the process is still quite hard, and we will need to rethink some of the things that are going on under the hood of the module. But yeah, the documentation is there. If you have any suggestions on how to improve that, if you happen to have any errors by using these instructions, make sure to report this as an issue against the developer documentation repository. You can always also improve this page by clicking this button. Plus, there is also an improved footer of the page, and you can see some useful links on the right side. Plus, you have this big button called improve this page, as well as link to how to contribute page, which basically summarizes how to contribute to the PrestaShop, because contributing is not always about coding. You can help us improving the documentation. You can help us translating the project. You can use the software. You can test the software, report bugs, and so on and so forth. It's also contributing to the project. All right. Okay, Achraf. So if you plan to start a new theme by using Hummingbird, I don't think it's a good idea, because there was no official release of the Hummingbird, which could be treated as a stable release. It's too soon. Sorry. Interesting question, Carlos. When you start migrating object models to Symfony entities, there was one discussion going on in the project about this subject. It's not that obvious. The discussion whether we move the entities from object model to doctrine is basically ongoing. And there is one proposal from Jonathan, which is about introducing module and improved access to modules through repositories, and basically to create a new layer in the application which will allow us to, in the future, switch from object model to doctrine or whatever any other solution that we will choose. So if you are interested in reading our way of thinking, our possible solutions to this problem, make sure to read ADR, and feel free to comment on that if you are interested in doing so. So it's not set in stone that we will migrate from object model to doctrine, because there are some things to be considered regarding that subject. Okay, thank you for commenting that, Vincent. This is exactly my thought as well. I do believe that we should catch up on the tooling used in our industry. Okay, there's one question from Jonathan. Could we say that a day we will see a roadmap, or at least some ideas on when PrestaShop want to work on next versions, maybe? I do believe that roadmap is almost ready, and it will be presented during the next live update in June, or the following upgrade live update in July. I'm pretty sure of that. But Spoiler, there will be some work around cut rules and prices in general. There is a work planned around the API in PrestaShop and a few other subjects that core developers want to do in PrestaShop 9, but the official roadmap will be shared in the following weeks. A question from Alex is, where is the progress in migrating of tuple files in Twig? I'm not sure I understand. Do you mean back office, or do you mean introducing Twig in front office? If it's the latter, there are no plans to introduce Twig in front office. We don't even have Symfony container in front office yet, the fully working Symfony container. Even though it is planned for V9, it's quite a huge topic. And regarding the back office, unfortunately, I don't have that information. I don't think this will be priority for V9, but I may be wrong. I think answer from Daniel is most accurate. Because if we migrate some tabs, for instance, titles or order states, this is the moment when we migrate from Smarty to Twig, the views from certain controllers. And there is a issue. There is an issue on GitHub which basically summarizes entire work around the migration, but I'm pretty sure it's impossible for me to find it right away. But the good news is that there's a migration process, that there is a migration project planned for V9. And if you visit the develop branch of PrestaShop, there's many tabs migrated under the experimental features tab. So as you can tell, we've migrated attribute group, cut rules, catalog price rules, countries, states, carriers, and many other tabs, controllers in back office to Symfony, which basically means that they are also migrated from Smarty to Twig. Daniel, after we migrate all controllers to Symfony, what about module configuration, module legacy controller from helper, list helper? If I recall correctly, there is no plan to delete those helpers. The plan is to keep them and to migrate module gradually. If we have, for example, Slider, we could migrate to Symfony right away. But I don't think it's that priority, and I don't think it's necessary. And yeah, I don't think there is a plan to get rid of helper form or helper list entirely, because this would be a massive PC break for community. It would be even harder for module developers than figuring out a way to use module front controller instead of PHP files directly. It will be very hard to migrate. This will be a lot of work for module developers, unfortunately. And you say that it would block us from ditching the admin controller completely. Again, I don't think there is a plan to ditch the admin controller completely. I think the plan is to migrate out of admin controller as soon as possible, but leave it as is. Because otherwise, we would require for module developers to basically migrate to Symfony, all the solutions to Symfony. And as a module developer, I would love to see that. But from the business perspective, I don't think it's possible in any, short time. As I know, the migration was made to make a workaround to keep them using adapters. Yeah, there was a project called horizontal migration, which was basically about introducing bridge between the helper list and Symfony. I'm not the best person to explain what happened to this project, but let's say that there's a different strategy right now. Maybe the team will decide to present the new strategy. For now, the pages are migrated using the vertical way of migrating, which means that we take the controller from the back office and we fully migrate it to Symfony. And yes, I've seen PR from Jonathan to use full Symfony layout. but I'm not aware of the full idea for this project. But let me reassure you that there's a lot of things going on in the code base, thanks to Fabien, thanks to Jonathan, and many other core developers from PrestaShop, to reassure that we use the best architecture possible, best tools possible, and best way possible to use Symfony things and Symfony way of thinking. So yeah, the better code base is coming in. It's a huge project. PrestaShop is a big software, and it's hard to migrate everything at once. But I can tell you right now that in PrestaShop 9 we will have much better quality of the software in general, thanks to improvements from guys working on the core of PrestaShop, and thanks to our amazing community as well. All right, guys, it's been a fun time discussing with you, and yeah, if there are no more questions, I think we will call it a day, and we will see each other. You will see me and a few other project members during the next live update in June. I'm not sure yet if it will be me presenting that or it will be somebody else, but we will have a project live update for sure. And there will be a presentation about issue management from our amazing Hiba from QA team. So let me invite you for the June's project live update already. Thank you for today, and yeah, let's catch up on the next one. Thank you, everyone. Bye.